Favorite warrant article. Give me my pocket.
Good evening. I call to order our regular meeting of March 10th, 2010. Everyone present except Mr. Higgins, who is on his way, and now Mr. Vail will be on his way. Going the other way. He's not able to stay. He'll be back later, perhaps. Okay. Thank you. It seems like a little while since we've been here, so we have a few items that we have filled in, so I hope everybody will stay with us and we'll be able to get through this tonight. Okay, our first items are items for approval. The minutes of January 27th, 2010 regular session, approval of the out-of-state field trip, Oradorn Point Park, New Hampshire, 3rd grade for Shawsheen. Mrs. Benton. Consent agenda, I just did.
Good evening, everyone. We have been away from the camera for a long time.
Sorry.
I recommend favorable action on both of these items. The field trip is a trip that 3rd graders at Shawsheen have been taking. Well, for as long as I've been in Wilmington, it's over the line in New Hampshire, so that's why it needs school committee sanction.
Okay. I'd entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes of January 27th, 2010 regular session, and for the out-of-state field trip. Mr. Marchese.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of January 27, 2010 regular session and the out-of-state field trip to Oradorn Point Park, New Hampshire for the 3rd grade Shawsheen field trip.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Second, Dr. Quick. Thank you. All those in favor? Unanimous, Trish. Thank you. Our next item of business would be Student School Committee, Kellen Campbell. Thank you. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. Good evening. Spring is fast approaching at the high school, and the winter sports teams' seasons ended successfully, especially for the girls' basketball team and the boys' hockey team, both of which made it to the 3rd round of the sports of the postseason play. Also, 2 members of the hockey team have been invited to compete in the statewide All-Star Game. It's the 1st annual. It will be held on March 20th at Songus Arena at 3 o'clock. It's supposed to be, it's a big honor for them. Zach Rosa and Dan Cushing, they're both seniors at the high school currently. Tryouts for the spring sports teams begin this Monday, March 15th. As for school clubs, the Business and Marketing Club at the high school, known as DECA, competed in the state competition last weekend in Boston. Several students were recognized with medals, and a few have been given the opportunity to move on to the national competition in Kentucky. Also, several members of the drama club performed in the one-act play festival, performing the play Dog Sees God. They gave a free performance of it the Wednesday before the competition at the high school, and it was a huge success. Personally, I loved the show. The performance did an excellent job. They did well in the competition, too, although they did not move on to the next round. Also, in the drama club, auditions were held for the spring play, Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream, which will be performed sometime in late May. At the high school, we recently had a program on genocide, and members of the World War II class, the class on genocide called Facing History and Ourselves, Honors French 5, Honors Latin, and the National Honor Society were invited to attend. Survivors of the Rwandan genocide, the Cambodian genocide, and the Holocaust, as well as a scholar of the Armenian genocide, were all present, sharing their stories and outlooks. After telling their stories, students were invited to ask them questions. The event was amazing. Students were touched by the stories, and after the assembly, many stayed behind to follow up with the survivors, asking additional questions and thanking them for coming in. Mrs. Tucker and Miss Desberg worked hard to make this event possible. Today was a half day at the high school as teachers continue to prepare for the NEASC accreditation team that will arrive this Sunday. Students, teachers, and parents will all be involved in this process as our school is evaluated. Also, tonight is the seniors versus staff basketball game as the seniors hope to have a victory over the staff, which has not happened in years, if ever. And tonight was also the UNO's fundraiser. So people that eat at UNO's today and bring a coupon for Wilmington High School, 20% of the proceeds will go to Wilmington High School for the class of 2010. So, yep. So thank you very much. That's all.
Wow, lots going on.
Yeah.
That's great.
Kellen, can you just, remind the audience of the mandatory meeting for
Yes.
prom that's coming up?
I believe it's on Wednesday, March 23rd. Oh, no, it's a Tuesday, sorry. Tuesday, March 23rd, there's a mandatory pre-prom assembly for all students and parents of students who are planning on attending the junior and or senior prom. And it's a part of the Wildcat Project, which is raising awareness of drug and alcohol abuse in schools.
Great, thank you, Kellen. Do you have any questions or comments?
What time is that assembly at? Do you know?
6 o'clock.
Yeah.
And the junior prom will be on the 26th. It's that Friday.
At Marriott in Burlington.
Burlington, yep.
Wow. It's hard to believe that with this little bit of snow left, that the spring season has begun. That's great. Thank you, Kellen, that's terrific.
Thank you.
And if you're going off to watch the basketball, good luck.
Are you playing it?
No, I'm not playing.
Oh, okay, good luck, thank you so much. Okay, next is our superintendent's report. Mrs. Benton.
First, before she leaves, I just want to congratulate Kellen on being a National Merit finalist.
Thank you.
She and Adele Musicat, two of our students, and that's a huge honor, and we are very, very proud of you.
Thank you.
We wish you all the best.
Thank you.
That's a very good final, thank you.
Yeah, you can go. I'd just like to announce and thank Textron and our town manager, Mike Kyra, for making arrangements for our Wilmington High School tennis teams to use the Textron tennis courts for the spring season. Mark Catazzoni of Textron generously agreed that our students would be able to use the courts, and we are most appreciative, because if you happen to look at our courts, they're not in very good condition, and the Textron courts are just beautiful, so we're really, really pleased. Also, I included in the packet the end-of-the-year audit performed by Roselli Clark and Associates. If you have any questions on the audit, I'm happy to answer them.
Did anyone have? Mr. Mark,
I'm sorry.
Ms. Marchese?
Not in the audit, but on the tennis courts, how are we going to get the kids back and forth to Textron from the high school up there? Are they going to bus? I'm just curious about the safety of them walking up 62 and getting up there.
The kids, as in all sports, have responsibility for getting to the field. So, for example, there's some sports that happen at Woburn Street School. It's their responsibility to get there. I don't believe, I will check with Mr. Harrison, but I don't believe that they will be walking there.
Okay.
No, either parents drive them.
Parents drive them, or if there's a
they-
bus going by,
right, or there's
high
a
school
senior
bus.
that can drive
Yeah.
other students.
Yeah, no, good
Because
question.
the home courts were at Boutwell anyway, which they had to drive to and get to the last number of years anyway.
Oh, that's right. Will they, so will they probably not be at the Boutwell as much as they used to be? Or maybe not at all?
No, they won't at all.
They won't be at all?
they'll
Oh,
be at-
okay, good. Wow. Mrs. Duffy?
Well, there's the boys' tennis team and the girls' tennis team, so for practices, Textron open to one team's practice or the others? Yeah, so it's the games.
It's the games. I know it's the games. So
Because they
Boutwell
play
will be used
opposite
for
each other.
practice,
When the
right.
girls are home, the
Right.
boys are away. So the games will be held at the Textron tennis courts. I don't know about the
I'll find out
practices.
the answer to that practice.
Okay, thank you. All right,
Can I just make one comment on the audit report?
yes.
If you notice that there was only one question that was raised in the audit. Normally, when a superintendent gets this back, there's at least a list of 15 to 20, because the report is so incredible to do.
Wow.
So I just wanted to acknowledge our Director of Finance and Administration,
Mr.
Mr.
Joe, thank
Ruggiero, for
you.
the work he did on it. It's only the second time he's done it, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Wow.
pretty impressive.
Thank you.
And I know how difficult it is, because when I was in Lexington, my business manager was in China, and I had to do the report, and it was, I'd never thought I was going to survive it, so
Right.
I want to congratulate Paul on that.
Thank you. I think,
to go to
yes,
this stuff.
we're going to keep going on because our budget hearing is scheduled for 7:30, so we're not going to do it until 7:30, just in case somebody wants to join us. So we'll go next to old business. There are 4 votes that we'll go to.
We can do 3 of them.
We'll do 3. Oh, okay, yes, we'll do the first 3. Mrs. Benton.
Okay, at the last school committee meeting, a recommendation was made to authorize the Director of Administration and Finance to transfer funds in order to account for language changes in our FY10 budget. This is the second reading.
Okay, so I'd entertain a motion to authorize the Director of Administration and Finance to transfer funds in order to account for lane changes in the FY10 budget. Do we have a motion? Oh, Ms. O'Connell.
I make a motion that we authorize the Director of Administration and Finance to transfer funds in order to account for lane changes in the FY10 budget.
Second? Dr. Quick. Okay. All those in favor? Okay, unanimous.
The second vote is a recommendation to authorize the Director of Administration and Finance to reallocate the FY circuit breaker offset budget to the full-day tuition line.
So I'd entertain a motion to authorize the Director of Administration and Finance to allocate the FY10 circuit breaker offset budget to the full-day tuition line. Do we have a motion? Mr. Marchese?
I make a motion to allow the Director of Finance and Administration to allocate the FY 2010 circuit breaker offset budget to the full-day tuition line.
Is there a second? Dr. Quick. All those in favor? Unanimous, Trish. Okay. And the third one?
At the last school committee meeting, I made a recommendation to accept a bid for the installation of security cameras at the high school. These cameras are to be placed outside of the bathrooms so as to deter the incidents that happened last year. I had a question by someone who saw this on TV last month. I just want to make that clear. These are to go outside of the bathrooms at the high school. Recommendation made to utilize carry-forward funds for this purchase.
Okay, so this is in the form of 2 motions?
Yes.
The first one, I'd entertain a motion to accept the bid of $13,595.05. That's an interesting bid, and 5 cents, from Surveillance Specialties Limited for the high school security cameras. Do we have a motion? Dr. Quick.
I motion to accept the bid of $13,595.05 from Surveillance Specialties Limited for the high school security cameras.
Do we have a second? Mr. Marchese. Any discussion? Ms. O'Connell.
Just a quick question, and I apologize for not asking this in advance, is with this, do we have to have any sign-off from the parents in order to install? And is it something that would become part of a policy going forward, or like the student handbook going forward? And I apologize, I did not ask that before this meeting.
What we have to do is notify everyone that there are cameras in the hall, and we'll put up a sign, just like we do for the doors. We have cameras at the front doors that there has to be a sign that says that you're being filmed.
You're being videoed?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, all those in favor? Unanimous, Trish. And the second one, I'd entertain a motion to authorize the Director of Administration and Finance to utilize $13,595.05 of the carry-forward funds to pay for the purchase and installation of the high school security cameras. Mr. Marchese.
I make a motion to authorize the Director of Finance and Administration to use $13,595.05 from the carryover funds to purchase the new surveillance cameras.
Okay, do we have a second? Mr. Higgins. Thank you. Any discussion, questions? Okay, all those in favor? Unanimous, Trish. Thank you. Okay, our next item would be, we're going to skip the vote in the budget till we have the budget hearing. We will go back to that, number 4, under old business. So we'll move forward. New business, cyberbullying. Mrs. Benton.
Recently, we have had a couple of instances of cyberbullying in our middle school and high school that have been vicious, targeted Facebook pages against specific teacher and student. This behavior cannot be tolerated. In light of what went on, we have put in place some programs, and I'd like to acknowledge there was a workshop here last week done by Margie Daniels from the Massachusetts Youth Partnership Alliance out of the District Attorney's Office that actually 50 staff members attended on cyberbullying. Next Thursday night, March 18th at 7 o'clock, I am putting together a panel presentation for parents, grades 4 through 12. It'll take place at the middle school auditorium. Phil Fogelman, who is the executive director of the Anti-Defamation League, will be there. Margie Daniels from the Middlesex Alliance. All of our school resource officers will be there, but Brian Herman and Lieutenant Scott Sensabaugh will be doing a piece of the panel presentation. Lisa Ippolito will talk about the program we put in place, the educational program we're doing in the schools for children on the internet. Eric Tracy will talk about safety issues, safety suggestions for parents, and I will talk about the new bully legislation and policy that Mrs. Duffy and Mr. Vail and I are working on to address holding students accountable in school for incidents that happen outside of school that carry over to school. Right now, our policy, the way our policy reads, we cannot take action against an incident like that. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, the two young women that had created that page then proceeded to, after they were caught, proceeded to bully the young woman in school by taunting her for them getting in trouble. And because of that, we were able to suspend them for a set time based on that behavior. But the way our policy reads, we are not able to punish kids unless it's under the sports MIAA regulations around, athletics. So our new policy will have language in it that will allow schools to be able to hold students accountable for actions outside of school that carry on into the school atmosphere. In addition, there is a program set up at the middle school. All 6th, 7th, and 8th graders will be having an expert on cyberbullying come in and do a presentation with them. We are also looking to do a unit in our health unit in our elementary grades for all students that will be there. So every year we will have that, children being reminded of it. I believe the only way we're going to be able to tackle cyberbullying and bullying is if the community, parents and students and teachers work together. We need the support of parents to be vigilant of and be taking a look at what their children are doing at home, looking at their Facebook pages. If their child is not 14, it's illegal for them to have it. In fact, the 36 middle school students that were attached to this Facebook page, 30 of them should not have had a page because they weren't 14. So we need to educate the community and get parents to be more cognizant of what students are doing on Facebook pages and teach them how to, some of the protections, because there are privacy protections around Facebook pages that students don't realize that, in which you only share your page with people that you know instead of strangers. In interviewing the students, it was clear to me that half of them don't even know all the ins and outs of Facebook, because one young lady said to me, I get hundreds of invitations a day to join a page, and I just do accept. And to quote Margie Daniels in her presentation, I don't know how many 14-year-olds have 785 friends. So you know that quite a few of those 785 friends are strangers. And unfortunately, in this day and age, we have strangers on Facebook pages that are, have no good intention. So we need to make sure that our students aren't giving out their personal information, aren't responding to people that they don't know, and holding everyone responsible who uses who bullies or cyberbullies, either whether outside or inside school. The reality of 2 deaths in Massachusetts this year, suicides due to connected with bullying, has to make us all very vigilant about what our children are doing. So I invite all of you on March 18th to attend the forum. We also will be hopefully videotaping it to show on cable.
Mr. Marchese?
Mrs. Benton, I have a couple of follow-up questions. Of the 30 middle school students who were tagged to this Facebook page that should have not been on Facebook, were their parents notified that they were on Facebook illegally?
Every parent was notified, and I will say that they were extremely cooperative in helping us get the page, their children's names off the page so that we could get the page removed.
Okay, well, hopefully they got off Facebook. Not supposed to be there in the first place. And the other 2 girls that you mentioned who were suspended because they continued the bullying within the school parameters, the student who was bullied, what has the school done to protect that student, to prevent any other, are they separated in classes now? They go different hallways? What's, are they limited interaction or anything?
The children, the 2 girls involved were removed from the teacher's classroom. The teacher that was connected, that they, I hate the teacher and the student, because it was not fair for that teacher to have students that caused all this. And that other student is in that class, so the students are not together anymore. We have put in place as many protections as we can. However, I cannot say to you or to the parents of this child that I can truly protect her. This bus, we switch buses. We're trying to, I used to coin the phrase, shrink the world, the experience for the students, so that we can try and protect her. Middle school age is not easy to begin with, and we're hoping that we'll be able to provide a safe environment for the student, but I can't guarantee it.
For the parents who were involved in this, I don't know what their reaction was, whatever, but hopefully they're taken seriously enough to follow up with their kids and make sure that it doesn't continue, or at least if it happens again, that there's more of severe punishment or something to that extent.
We would hope that parents understand the seriousness of it. With a new policy in place, there will be stricter, we will be able to discipline within the school.
I guess my only follow-up question to that is, say if this was to happen again tomorrow, same kids, same situation, is it the same punishment, or is it even worse?
No, it would be more severe.
More severe, okay. All right. I just want to drive the point home to the kids. Bullying can't be tolerated at any grade level. I've seen it in the younger grades. I've seen it to my children. I've seen it to my children's friends. It happens all over the place. It happened when I was younger. Some people say suck it up or whatever, but now in this day and age with the media and everything else that's happening out there, especially with Facebook and all these other outlets that kids are reaching out to now, it's to an extreme where I've never seen it before, and it really does scare me.
And Mr. Marchese, you're right about it getting worse, because when you and I were in school and were bullied, we knew who the bullier was. The problem with cyberbullying is it's anonymous. It can be done anonymously. And, we just happen to be lucky that middle school students use their own names. But older students are more sophisticated and are not using their names when they're doing these kinds of things to students. So you're right. The issue is getting graver.
All right. And obviously working with the police department and trying to curb this or following up.
The Wilmington Police Department has been terrific. Officer Herman and Officer Bruce have really helped us in tracking down some of the perpetrators. And as you all know, right now there's legislation being acted on to put together a law around bullying and cyberbullying.
And one last question. When they contacted Facebook, were they at least cooperative, or, were they shocked about this? Or, I don't know, so I'm just...
You can't, the only way you can contact Facebook is by emailing a complaint. They will not, there is no phone number for Facebook because of how large it is. What we learned is, because I actually tried 10 times filing a complaint online. What we need to do is call the district attorney's office. They have a connection to Facebook to get something off. And so we learned that through our experience. But
okay.
The only way you can actually get a page removed is if you get the authors. The authors are the only ones who can remove it. In this case, the two young women there were three. One student no longer attends Wilmington schools. They took their names off the page, so we didn't have access to get the page down until we found every single student on that page and contacted parents and asked them to help us do it, remove their names. My last one was another student who goes to another school system now, but I tracked them down as well, and Chip Bruce did a great job of reaching out to parents. But there's one thing around teasing, typical, middle school behavior. This was a hate page, and there's no qualms about it. It was a hate page, and that is something we cannot tolerate. It's, this is a new teacher to this system. This is not a Wilmington way. And the student does not deserve to not feel safe in our school system. So we need to do a lot more educating and enlisting of help of parents.
Dr. Quick?
Mrs. Benton, during this assembly that you're going to be holding, you talked about not only going to be discussing the bullying, but are you going to be discussing the ins and outs of these social networking sites so that people will understand?
Yes.
Okay.
Ms. O'Connell?
Just to follow up to some of the comments, with this policy and even some of the other policies, we've had some other events, and I don't want to get on a tangent, but we've had the bomb situation, and we've had this, and I look at it like you have this positive pillar of all these wonderful activities, but then you have this other pillar of kind of the good versus the bad. Is there a way, with what we're doing already, and then obviously with our legal counsel, to pursue an end range to some of these policies more in depth, such that expulsion, for example, that if it gets to the point of such severity that the student that is causing the action in a negative fashion, if they can't get on board with the program, so to speak, that rather than have the rest of the community suffer, they would essentially be removed from the environment permanently with a zero tolerance factor.
With the bombing situation, if we had caught the students, they would have been expelled. We do have that. This, yes, absolutely, we will put in place, Eric, each of the principals will add to their consequence lists the consequences for
Expulsion.
This type of behavior that will lead to expulsion.
Any more questions or comments? Mr. Higgins?
Just one comment, and it's just a personal belief. Instead of making the one who was bullied, making their world smaller, I truly believe in making the bully's world smaller. Let them know that they're being watched the minute they get to school to the minute they leave school and when they're on the bus. And, their world went from having all sorts of freedoms. If this is how you want to act, your freedoms are gone until you prove that you can be responsible again. That's just how I feel.
Good. Yeah. Any other comments or questions? I just want to say that this, for me, is like Mr. Marchese, when you're around any little kids in a neighborhood, you see bullying. I just could not get over the fact that I think it starts in kindergarten and before kindergarten, in preschool, but they don't know what it is when they're 3 and 4. They don't. But if that isn't picked up by the parents who are watching them and who are out there with them, and if you're not told, no, that's not nice, you shouldn't be saying that. If we're letting those little things go, they just keep building up and building up. And I find this one of the most horrific things we've had to deal with. I can't even imagine what the young lady felt like, let alone the teacher. But the teacher at least has some years behind her. Certainly, I don't think it's worse for the student, but I just think in a lot of ways, it's so unfortunate that kids could get to this point, and we all have to deal, once it's done. I remember when I was going to Japan, someone said to me, I got to go to a trip to Japan, and they said, the Americans spend so much time trying to find out who did it, but the Japanese say, all right, it's been done, what are we going to do about it? And I really like the response that I want to congratulate Mrs. Benton. It's a horrible thing to have to congratulate you for, but the way that you've handled this, she got right in there immediately and was over there and was working on it with Ms. McMinimum and the staff at the middle school. And she started doing all the positive things that needed to be done, knowing that we have policies and we hope we never have to use them. But then we get to a point where something like this, our policy doesn't cover what really happened. So it gives us the opportunity to tweak and change, and that's what we'll vote on, I'm sure, on an upcoming meeting. But to go forward and to arrange all of these things, I think that's commendable that we're taking that proactive attitude. And I just want to say, for parents, forget the fact that it's been done, and you don't, go forward with your children with a positive impact, and let them know that this is not, we are not tolerating this. We all feel strongly that this cannot be tolerated in our school system. So hopefully we'll be able to see a lot of people at the middle school on March 18th. Looking forward to that. That'll be good. Thank you so much. Okay. All right, excellent. Now we can go forward to our budget hearing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn this current meeting to a public budget hearing. Do we have such a motion? Mr. Higgins.
I move that we adjourn the regular meeting to go to a public budget meeting from which we shall return.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Dr. Quick. Okay. All those in favor? Great, thank you. Mrs. Benton, proposed FY11 budget, public hearing.
I put at your seats this evening an abbreviated presentation. I am recommending an increase of $700,000 to the FY10 budget for a total of $30,700,000, which is a 2.33% increase for our 2011 budget. It is an increase of $225,145 to the salary line and $474,855 to the non-salary line. This budget will enable us to continue to maintain current staffing levels, to expand our life skills program at the high school, continue our applied behavioral specialist position, the full-day kindergarten, for early intervention at the kindergarten level, support the 5-year strategic plan, continue with year 2 of our elementary technology specialists, our virtual high school classrooms at the high school, virtual classroom at the high school will support the creation of an additional special education classroom at the primary level, continue to support our English language learners, will build capacity in our OIT department to meet the ever-growing demands of technology by creating a system manager's position, and continue to support our staff with strong, valuable, and appropriate professional development. In addition to this sum of money, as you know, we did receive ARRA funds last spring and this year. Included in the in those funds were IDA funds of $458,000, $498,000 for FY10, and $457,653 for FY11. Stimulus grant of $512,889, and 2 pre-K IDA funds. We will be using those funds in order to fully finance the fiscal 2011 budget. Mr. Ruggiero and I knew that this would be a tougher year going forward, so we protected some of our IDEA and stimulus funds in order to apply them towards the FY 2011 budget, which is allowed. So the ARRA funds will be used to offset the reduction of the circuit breaker. Last year, we had been funded at 72%, and last year the governor slashed it to 40%. So we had to make up the difference, which was approximately $450,000. We'll pay for the ABA specialist. We had to add a kindergarten teacher this year at Wildwood because of the numbers increased, paid for the kindergarten teacher and ed assistant, paid for the elementary technology integration specialist, paid for the additional life skills teacher at the high school in the fall, and the setup of the new multidisciplinary classroom, as well as textbook professional development funds. That question I know came up the night that the town manager presented his budget. What will we do with the ARRA funds? I also want to point out that any positions that are connected to those funds, the letters, the contracts for those staff members that are hired under the funds, it clearly says when the grant runs out, the position runs out as well. So we will not be carrying over positions that we have not included in our operating budget. I also attached the recommended line items for each of the schools, and I am recommending this evening that the school committee approve operating budget for FY 2011 of $30,700,000. So I can entertain questions from the audience.
Do you have any questions? Mrs. Duffy?
One question. Can you just give me a little background on how we can use those funds, the AAR funds from 010 into 011? Because that appears to be uncommon practice for me. Mostly of the time that I've been involved with these kinds of things, it has said that within the year that it was set aside is the year that it must be completed.
You're absolutely right. We've never been able to do this before. This is the president's, the federal grants. They are allowing us to either expend the funds in 2010, or if we chose to, we could notify the federal government that we're going to carry over the funds until FY11. You're absolutely right. This has never been allowed before. Usually grants funds have to be expended in the year that they're awarded. So we got to choose which year we want to expend it. There are very, very complicated and explicit forms that we have to fill out for every expenditure of these grants, and there will be special audits done by the state and federal government on the grants.
Okay, thank you.
It was in response to the financial situation across the United States, and glad you raised that. It's a good question.
Thank you very much.
Do we have any other comments? Oh, Mr. Marchese?
The bottom line of the budget, the regular town expenses, is $30,700,000, but then you get $1.9 million that's being funded by grants. I know, 4.25 is from the AAR funds and all that stuff, but what is the outlook going beyond FY11 in terms of grant money, in terms of what you're hearing, Mrs. Benton, Mr. Ruggiero, and what's out there, what you think? I mean, you're on the front line. You hear this from other schools and other, districts and stuff like that. What are other people bracing for, anticipating for? I mean, because if we don't get this stuff next year, it's $1.9 million. That's a lot of jobs.
You're absolutely correct. I was actually at a Merrimack Valley Superintendent's meeting today and was speaking with the superintendent from Somerville, and we both said at the same time, our concern is for fiscal 2012. because there will be these funds will not be allowed. That's why, if you noticed, I have chosen not to fund operating expenses, classroom teachers' positions with these funds, because we can't afford to carry over these positions once these grant money goes away. I think that we're going to see, I think it's going to be more difficult. We heard today that I believe that although the governor is not touching, his budget does not reduce level funds, Chapter 70 money, that we're going to be receiving a memo tomorrow. They were going to originally try and get the recommendation out by March 15th, but now I understand it's been postponed till the end of April after. Well, I won't make my comment about why it's been moved till then, but that there will be a 5% reduction in Chapter 70A this year. Now, I mean, that would hurt us as well. However, as you know, our town manager, we budgeted below. We actually, he budgeted at 8% or 7. Was it, Polly? 7 or 8? Or 10% reduction.
I think it was like 10%.
Yeah,
below.
10% reduction, so
Yeah.
we'll be okay. But I mean, Superintendent Andover was telling me she has to cut 33 positions in the FY 2011 budget, so I think it's going to get worse before it gets better.
So, just, again, just in terms of the grant money, the 1.7 just in salaries is tied to that. I mean, how many jobs does that really equate to? Just for, so people really know, how bad it really could get.
How many positions?
In total,
Mr. Ruggiero.
including the kindergarten and so forth, it might be 15 to 20 in total.
Yeah,
maybe.
with all grants.
With all grants,
Yes,
with all
yes.
grants. That would.
Yeah, with everything, because we don't know. I mean, things are getting tight out there.
In here, if I may, it's not only grants, there is some revolving money in here. For instance, some athletic expenses are in this $1.9 million number, and then that's from gate receipts, from the revolving account for athletics.
Okay.
It was not 100% grants.
Okay.
32.
Is that right?
I just got, because remember, our full-day kindergarten grant allows us to run the program
Yeah, full day.
without a fee.
Yeah,
So the 32 staff members covered by grants.
that's a lot.
What's interesting to me is on the Mass Association of School Committees listserv, it's just started again this week, where other communities are talking about next year, the 2012, being absolutely horrible. They've already started talking about it in their communities, and they're saying we've barely gotten through this, and we've had to make so many cuts, and now we have no idea what we're going to do, and they want to start to organize to go into the Governor of the Day on the Hill, and they're really concerned. So I feel fortunate in Wilmington that we have such a good working relationship with the town, that these things are always in the back of everyone's mind, and we're making decisions based on what could happen. And I think we're making responsible decisions. They're very good. Anyone have any more questions? We're going to come out of the budget hearing, and then we'll vote on the budget in the regular meeting. So I'd entertain a motion to close the public budget hearing and to reconvene to our regular school committee meeting. Mr. Marchese.
Make a motion that we close the public budget hearing and reconvene to our regular scheduled meeting.
Do we have a second? Okay, all those in favor? Oh, second, Mr. Higgins. All those in favor? Okay, unanimous. Is that the, oh, no, I lost the, that's okay. We're just going to vote on this. Yeah. Okay, we're going back to old business, 5 old business number 4, vote on the FY 2011 budget. And so I would entertain a motion that we would accept the requested budget of 30 million, whoa, 30,000, we get a lot for our money. $30,700,000. We have a motion, Mr. Higgins.
Move to accept the requested budget for FY11 of $30,700,000.
Do we have a second? Mr. Marchese. Okay, all those in favor? Unanimous, Trish, thank you. This has been a long process, and I'd also like to thank, we have so many of these budget papers. I'd like to thank the superintendent for, along the way, I don't know if we realize until you kind of watch her as you're going along, she had a presentation for the Finance Committee that was a little bit different than, it was focused towards the Finance Committee. The presentation for us, I think we've had 5 of them now. They've been focused a little differently. You have so many presentations. I really think that to make it clear to everybody, your presentations have been so outstanding and focused, and really, anyone who doesn't understand at this point what our budget is about, shame on them, because you've given us everything we certainly need to do. So thank you, and to your staff for this excellent budget presentation.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, now we're back to new business number 2, preschool tuition. Mrs. Benton.
Madam Chairwoman, we have we're asking that the preschool tuition be increased by $5. And I know this is going to sound crazy, but our preschool tuition was $2,725 payable over a 10-month period. And that comes out to $272.50 a month. And actually, it was the secretaries at the kindergarten, early childhood centers that pointed this out, that it's been very difficult to collect that 50 cents. So we're asking that you, recommending that we increase the annual rate by $5 to $2,730. We believe that the payments will be easier for parents and fully collectible. The payment would be $273 a month.
Now, do we feel we need to wait until, have a second reading?
I know.
Okay, so we can do this tonight. Mr. Marchese.
I just have a simple question, and maybe it's out of order, but I know you want to raise it $5 to even out the payments. Is there any way you could lower it $5? Just a question. I didn't know if we could afford that, or just a thought.
No, we can't lower it, because it covers the cost of the,
Okay.
break even with the difference between the grant money and the salary of the teacher. We looked at that.
All right, so did we have any other questions? I'd entertain a motion to set the 2010-2011 preschool tuition rate at $2,730. Who'd like to make the motion? No one wants to make the motion? No one wants to be tied to this one.
I just want to
Dr. Quick.
hopefully I'll have this right. I make a motion to set the preschool 2010-2011 preschool tuition to $2,730.
Second, Mr. Higgins, thank you. Okay, all those in favor? Unanimous, Trish. That's good. All right, next, spring SAT review course.
I need to preface this item by apologizing to the school committee, because this should have been brought to you back in February. This was time sensitive, and I've spoken with Mr. Tracy about putting this on the calendar for January next year. It was approval for the SAT prep review courses that we offered to the juniors, and it was announced at a meeting last week in February when it hadn't even come before you, so I apologize.
That's part of the problem with having we were unable to meet at the end of February.
So we're going to push things back 2 months now, so that that doesn't happen again.
Okay, thank you. All right, so what this is, well, we don't need to vote on this anyway, do we? Do we vote on this?
I don't think.
We paying,
Mrs. Duffy, I need you.
are we paying the teachers to run this course?
No, the tuition is
The tuition is provided for the
provided,
payment.
pays the teachers. We don't pay it. The tuition covers their stipend.
I think we have to, just because it's an instructional, it's approval of the information that they're giving the students, an instructional course.
Right.
So I think it would cover us to do so.
So I'd entertain a motion to accept the spring SAT review course. Would someone like to make that motion? Mrs. Duffy.
Motion to approve of the SAT review course for the spring.
Okay, second, Ms. O'Connell. All those in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Okay, change in graduation date. Mrs. Benton.
I'm respectfully requesting that the high school graduation date be changed from June 13th to June 6th. I'm concerned with the number of days that our students are out of school before graduation, and I don't know why I didn't pick up on the tentative date before. I think that we were thinking of 5 snow days. Excuse me. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Because we have no snow days to date, we will be able to meet the DESE requirements for setting the date of graduation on June 6th.
I'd just like to say that I feel badly because I've had a couple of phone calls on this issue from senior parents, and I explained to them that we do this every year and that our date is tentative, and I think next year when we do the calendar and at the beginning of the year, I think we'll just state publicly that the date is tentative for graduation, because we always wait to see whether we have 5 days or not. And since I've been here, it's always been the first weekend in June. But some people made some plans around the fact that it was published as the 13th. And so we'll watch next year ourselves, but for the public to know, it's always tentative until this time of the year, when we see what happens with snow days. You can only graduate so close to when the rest of the school system gets out. There's a state law in that. We have to abide by the state law. And so that's why we'll be making this change, if that's what we vote to do. So, oh, yes, Mrs. Marchese.
Ms. Spence, does this will have any trickle-down effect to the last day of school? That there's no change in that? I mean, no, we don't have...
For the seniors, no.
No, not the seniors. I mean, the rest of the school system. Do you think that date will move up?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, because we haven't had any, we have 2 dates actually on the calendar, the one with 5 days and the one with, yeah.
We,
It's actually there.
although we all know about the April Fool's storm and the May storm, so we
Right.
don't do anything yet.
You're pushing it.
Yes, exactly. So I'd entertain a motion to change the graduation date to June 6, 2010. Mr. Marchese,
I make a motion that we change the graduation date to June 6, 2010.
and a second, Mrs. Duffy. Thank you. Okay, all those, any other questions? Did you have a question, Dr. Quick?
I do have one question, actually. Sorry, Ms. Benton. That date of January 6th, actually, I should say, when we tentatively make the date for the 13th, that is assuming we have gone through the 5 days? Or 3 to 5, you know what I'm saying? That's saying we have hit those 5 days, and that's when the 13th is? And if it's 3 days, you can do it the 6th?
No, actually, Eric went beyond the 10 days that you can have students out of school. Seniors can be out of school 10 days before the rest of the school system. And we actually went more than 10 days.
Oh, okay.
Okay, all right. All those who approve moving the graduation date to June 6th? Unanimous, Trish? Okay. Our next item is ratification of WTA contract, and Ms. O'Connell will give us an update on that.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I am pleased to announce that on February 25th, the members of the Wilmington Teachers Association voted to accept the successor agreement covering the teacher's contract from September 1st, 2009 through August 31st of 2011. This is a 2-year contract, and the school committee met within a similar time frame and voted in the affirmative for the same contract as proposed. This contract will include no language changes as it stands today, and in year 1, due to economic times, the Wilmington Teachers Association graciously accepted a 0% increase in year 1, and in year 2, a 2.25% increase. So, as a result of this voting, this brings this business matter to a close, And I'd like to publicly thank the school committee negotiation team, Joanne Benton, Paul Ruggiero, Dr. McGinn, and the Wilmington Teachers Association for all of their hard work. And at this time, as I stated, it brings the matter to a close, and I want to thank all parties involved. Superintendent Benton.
Can I just make one slight correction? There was a few minor language changes and one large one, which was the evaluation language, which is what we
Yes.
wanted.
Okay.
So I just want to
Thank you.
make that, thank you.
Okay, Russ.
And Mrs. Duffy was on the committee.
Yes.
Okay. All right, great, thank you so much. Our next item of business is the superintendent's evaluation. I know I gave you a number of, they kept coming as I kept learning about this. There has been a change in the way that the state evaluates superintendents, and I'll just go over this briefly and see if you have any questions about this. There was a Wayland court decision that has caused the change, and it's actually two different laws: the open meeting law and the what's the other law? I'm sorry. All right, I'll find it. The two laws that we have the problem with. Okay. All right, I'll come back to that with the other law. Two laws were in conflict, and, I'm sorry, I do remember, the public records law and the open meeting law. And there was a court case from Wayland, and the court has declared the following changes in how a superintendent would be evaluated. And there are two options now in the evaluation process. One option, there would be a public discussion around the standards and goals. The standards that we use are the same standards that the Mass Association of School Committees uses in all their school systems. They may or may not stick to all of them, but they're the basic standard goals. What would happen would be, we would choose a date in which we would have an open public discussion as a school committee. The minutes would be taken. Once the minutes are approved at the next meeting, the copy of the minutes would go in the superintendent's file, but there would be no other write-up from the school committee. So that you'd have your public discussion, you'd have your minutes taken, the minutes would go in the superintendent's file, and that would be the end of that part of the evaluation. There's a second one where we would have an open public discussion, but there are two ways to do this second type. The subcommittee or a full committee would then go into executive session. So we could have an open discussion, and then we could decide if we wanted a subcommittee or if we wanted the entire school committee can go into executive session and create a written document. If anything comes up in that session that's different from what was spoken in open session, you have to go back into the next open session, and we'd have to talk about it. So in other words, you can't add anything in executive session that you haven't already talked about in public session, okay? The final document, however, is not subject to public view, and that final document would go into the superintendent's file. So in the first one, the minutes would go in, and the second one, the final document would go in. But it would really be, never mind, I'll just say that's what it would be. Okay. And the third one would be that each individual member writes an evaluation and brings it with them to the open meeting. Then we would have to go around, and we would, for each of the 6 areas, we'd speak about what we wrote. And then each of those individual documents goes in the superintendent's file. So as you can see, that's quite different. For those of you who've done it before, that's quite different from what we've done. And it's an interesting new process, so. Yes, Mrs. Duffy.
I guess my question with this is, where is the superintendent's response to the evaluation? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
superintendent's always had the ability to then put another, I mean, if you're putting a document into the superintendent's file, the superintendent has a right to agree or disagree with some of the statements that are in that particular document.
It's
So,
my understanding that if we did the first option, when we're having our discussion, then the superintendent has the ability to respond right then and there, and that would be part of the minutes. And is that how he's, yeah. And so you'd have the response at that time. On these other two, though, that's a good question. The other two responses. That did not come up when I was talking to Mr. Gilbert. So if we decide to go with one of the other two, I'll give him a call tomorrow and find out about the superintendent's response.
Well,
Yes.
just, I think that any of them are fine options as long as we as a committee understand that we are sticking to the standards only, sticking to the goals that the superintendent puts forth to us only, that we're directed to those. Because this is, we're a committee, we work together, we collaborate and cooperate, and so that it's not it doesn't become a, she said this, he did that, why'd they do this? It's not something like that. It's just goal number one, which states this, meets or doesn't meet, or can cite examples, but stick to just a business format for an evaluation. These are, similar to you have a rubric as a student that you need to follow when you're handing in your paper, and the teacher has the right to say, you met these by 3 points, you didn't get these 2 because you didn't have what was there, and the superintendent's goals really are her rubric for what she wants to accomplish, and there's certain evidence throughout our whole year that proves whether she has met it or not met it. And those things should be cited, that she met or exceeded it because these 5 things were done, plus 2 more that went with the standard. So I think that's something we really need to look at with our documentation, is that we look through the year that we've had, look at the goals the superintendent gave us with our mission as a committee, and say, she either met this or didn't meet this, and these are the examples from these meetings that tell me she did or she didn't. It's very clear cut. It's black and white. Everything should be able to follow that process.
Exactly, and if I have included for you the superintendent evaluation instrument. What we would do is, I would read the relationship with the school committee and read what this says, and then whoever wants to add to that or make their comments on that particular one, that's what we do until we're done talking about that. If the superintendent wants to respond to anything that we've said at that point, she'd have the opportunity to respond during that discussion. Then it's the second one is educational leadership, general management, financial business operations, personnel management, and communications, public relations. Now, the other thing I wanted you reminded me, Joan, makes me want to bring up, is the superintendent's goals are attached here. We approve these goals. So these goals, to me, in addition to the standards, these goals come under the standards in different areas. But these goals certainly are, whether she's achieved these goals or not, this is a fair way to do it because it's very objective, as you said. Does anyone have any, go ahead, Mr. Marchese.
Just a simple question on the goals of the superintendent. Is she going to be writing responses on all her goals and what she's at, or is that just to us to evaluate? Is she going to go through and say, goal 1, improve learning, this is what I did and how I accomplished it, or are we just to go based on what we've learned through the meetings and stuff like that? Kind of like a self-evaluation.
We've already done that.
Yeah.
But it's,
I've never done that before.
Ms. O'Connell?
I think you can tell by the list. I mean, it's easy to go down. I think you've heard about, I've reported on all of these things at school committee.
All right.
you would have your report, you would have your report that you've been given, and then you also have your own experience.
Yeah, all I was asking is just like, just alluding to a self-evaluation, that was it. That's more of a standard now and,
Oh, you mean how she
Correct.
feels of how she's done?
Exactly. Yeah,
Right.
based on all these goals that she set,
It isn't part of this, that isn't, it sounds like a good idea, but we actually, we should know all of these, because if we go back through your packets, we should know all of these. Mrs. Duffy?
At the beginning of the following year, when the superintendent sets her new goals, she does a review similar to what we do when we look at the goals for each of the schools. When Woburn Street says, I was going to work on this, this, and this last year, my new, I met this, I didn't, they come before us and say how far they got on each of those goals and what their goals will be for the next year. So the superintendent will do that once we're done with the process. So this is part of our job as a committee to be responsible for looking at what we believe, and this is our opinion, not the superintendent's opinion of everything that she's gotten through, although she's got plenty of support. We just need to do our piece and say, I noticed the support. And that's the point, is to say, are we noticing it?
Right.
And is the community noticing it? With community relations, are they noticing it? Are we noticing it? That's the perspective that this particular report is coming from.
Yeah, it's not the fact that we would notice it. I was just giving the superintendent an opportunity to, voice her opinion and, and praise herself, you know what I mean? And, whether or not we agree with that. That's why I was just giving her another opportunity to say, this is the goals I set and this is what I accomplished.
Yeah, she does that later on, that's all.
I know, and in fact, that definitely that is the way that some people are doing it, but that's not under this.
Well, it's,
Ms. O'Connell?
to your point, that's how it's done in industry,
Yes.
is that you do a self-evaluation. So I think that's probably, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but in corporate standards, you're allowed to do a self-evaluation on the same questions, so that that part comes to meet the committee's part, and you have a dialogue discussion, so you already have prepared data of what you've accomplished versus what the committee says, and then you have a discussion to see if the two match. But I think, to the point that you've already made, is that you've done that in previous documents, so we would have to reference that material.
Report of results, which Joan referred to. The problem that you have is the timing.
It is.
You've got
They're not
school
side by
committee
side.
members are
Yeah.
going off, so you've always done the evaluations in March or April, and the report of results comes in June. So, I would suggest that you look at last year's report of results as a basis for, and look at the rubric, the grid of what was proposed
The grid
this
is
year.
on the
I think
back
it
of,
can be easy to,
behind the goals there, we have the,
just a strategic plan for the year.
just looking at this, I know Mrs. Benton didn't sleep a lot. Just looking at this thing.
Never
it's-
does.
It never does. I think the best way to handle this would be, as you're going through it, you look at each of the 6 areas, see if you come up with 1 or 2 things in your mind that you can think of right offhand. Go through your folders if you need to, but then combine them with the goals. So whatever way, Is it all right to say that if they have a problem with someone wanted to ask you a question, we could give you a call?
Absolutely.
Yeah. If you think there's something that you'd want a little clarification on, feel free, don't have to go through me, just ask Mrs. Benton. Ask her. Yeah.
CC you.
And CC me.
But
You don't have to ask me, but just CC me afterwards.
But that
Yeah.
communication would be open to the open meeting law? It would be
Oh,
purview to
let's
that?
take that back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
since we are having that discussion, then all those documents would have to be made public.
What I meant was in terms of, I think that this is done, but I can't find information on it. Is that done? But we can ask that in the open session. So if you have questions about it, bring it with you for the open session.
And this is
Yeah, that's
uncharted
good.
waters this year.
Totally,
And then it's
yeah.
going to change again come July 1st, so.
Mr. Higgins?
2 things. First, so there wouldn't be a problem with giving the superintendent that question ahead of time, right? Instead of, if
That's right.
Mr. Marchese has an issue, I don't really remember how that played out, and then he just waits for the meeting, say, exactly how did that play out, and, Mrs. Ben might.
her off guard.
Yeah, exactly, well, you know what, I don't remember, let me research it,
So how do we get
but
around that? Yeah.
you email over the question, this is what I'm gonna ask you in public session, and then when you ask
Bring it
that
with you.
question, and it should be verbatim, it should be how you wrote that question, I don't see any conflict.
That's a good way, that's a good way around it.
And the
Good.
second part was, I definitely favor option number 1. And that just, it works to us being a committee a lot better, because when we're trying to focus on something and really get going, and it's easy to get swept up in your own thoughts and completely forget about another issue, good, bad, or indifferent, and then just as we have this open discussion about it, oh yeah, that's right, I did want to comment on that. So I definitely favor option one. And as far as when we have it, doesn't matter to me. I'm ready now. But if the superintendent or other members want more time, then I'm certainly okay with waiting until April as well. It doesn't matter.
Our question is, we have 2 weeks we can do it, March 24th or April 14th. April 14th is the last day that we'll have Joan and Judy with us. So thinking maybe.
I would recommend the March 24th only because if something happened,
right,
we'd only have one meeting left to do it.
Yeah. All right, let's go back for a minute. How many of us favor option one? Okay. And the superintendent favors option one, right? And another option, do you favor another option, Ms. O'Connell?
No, I don't favor any option per se, but it's more the fact that just hearing this for the first time as to what makes the most sense. I want to be sensitive to the fact that the transparency piece and having it an open meeting, but it's a lot of data to put out there kind of ad hoc in an open meeting and capture all the data points and have both parties be able to be represented. So there's a good chance that it may be probably the one agenda item, because it could go long. So I'm all for that, and I think that the reasons why are valid, but I think that we're going to have to figure out a way to handle this forum so that it's systematic and it translates positively to the community that's viewing at home, and that we have some sort of a meeting structure to have this outwardly so that, we have a plan of communication. Because I just don't want to have people get disenchanted and frustrated with the flow of it, that the points get diluted because we're having...
Well, I definitely think what Joan said right at the beginning, we have to keep in mind, this has to be very general and specific at the same time, about what we're really looking at is professional performance. So we have to keep in mind professional performance. That's what we're looking for. And that's what we're evaluating. Steve?
Yeah, actually, to bring that, your point a little bit home, Judy, is it's the onus will be on the chair to keep it on point, keep us all on point, and also on the vice chair to help remind the chair sometimes, because she sometimes gets swept in the moment. We've seen it happen. I had to nudge her for a little while. She always raises her hand when she has to ask a question too, and she's still the chair. But that's okay. We'll let that go. But
I thought that was fun. But I think you're right. We have to set some rules.
I'm not opposed to it too, and I want to be very, very clear to the board and to the public that I am a huge proponent of transparency in government, but I also, I don't want to put anybody in an awkward situation in a live setting with no knowledge of what could be brought up. That, most people get privately evaluated with their direct management staff behind closed doors and have that privacy factor, and I just don't want to see us unveiling something live with no, plan that puts anybody on edge and takes it out of context, that's all.
Mrs. Duffy?
Just back to what Judy's saying. The superintendent's job is a very public job. She's a public member, right up front in the community. So there shouldn't be anything, and there won't be anything that's in her job objectives and in her goals that would come out like that. And if it, we're here to hear it. Everything that the superintendent's doing, everybody has heard about in every one of these meetings already. So we're just evaluating whether those goals are met and how they were met. and it's very cut and dry. And we're all professionals, so it's just, this is the evaluation, this is the way it has met, so I don't have a problem with that. I do agree with the March 24th would be better. I wouldn't like that to be my last meeting here. I'd like to be a little bit lighter than that. I also think that that's the best option because we have Trish to take our minutes, because I wouldn't want to be on that subcommittee meeting afterwards trying to write everything down for a whole group of people and spend another hour doing it. That's kind of selfish on my part, but thanks, Trish. I'd rather pay Trish to do it rather than do it myself and get paid zero.
And when you go to do it yourself, a number of times, things could come up, things could pop up, oh, we should have said this, we should have said that. If that happens, you are bound to come back here to open session.
Right.
So we don't want to get ourselves in a position where we'd be adding information or detracting or something, so.
Exactly.
So
that's my,
It makes sense to do it that way. All right, so then we'll take a consensus that it will be on March 24th. We'll have a light agenda, hopefully, yeah. And we'll go from there. Sounds great, okay. Thank you very much. Let me see. The next, school committee representative for educational assistant contract negotiations. Are they represented by the MTA?
Yeah, well,
I'm only asking because I could be on it if they're not, but if they are, I can't, and I'm not sure who else is going to be able to do it. We'll see.
Who is it? What's the group?
The educational assistants.
they
Oh,
are.
yes, they are.
They
Yes, they
are.
are, because I did them the
Yeah.
last time.
Oh,
Yes, they
okay.
are, yes. Yep.
So we might have to, there's more. Is theirs up in June also? Their contract's up in June? So we need to get that started. I'm trying to think of who, looking at Stephen or Mario, or Leslie, you can't, think about it. Would you three think about it?
Think about it. It's a good group to work with. I've been in on the last two with the educational assistants, and they've gone very smoothly.
Oh, good.
So I would encourage, it's a good one to get into.
All right, so then on the 24th, we'll see if any of you have that idea, and if not, we might have to just have Mr. Ruggiero do it. Until, when someone else comes on, then we could add them to it if we have to.
You're going to have another one to add as well?
Yes, we are. Which one were you? The other one?
Secretaries.
Secretaries. You can't finish by next week?
That's the plan.
Mr. Ruggiero, the pressure's on.
Need the closer.
Joe, what are you doing? I think we need it. We need the closer on ours. Oh, dear, okay. We're adding one more thing for number 8. Could we put under new business warrant article? You have a copy of the warrant article that the school committee is actually a proponent of for town meeting. Mrs. Benton, I'll let you
this,
speak to this.
the town attorney, John Fawcett, worked with the Christine Nolan from the MSBA on the language around this Article 10, which would be an article to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate available funds for the purpose of conducting a feasibility study for the Wilmington High School.
Okay. This warrant, this is the first part, the first step of the process, and so the warrant comes from us as the sponsor of this. And so what we'll do is we'll bring it forward. Do we have to vote approval of this warrant article?
I did a motion for you.
Yeah. Oh, it's huge. Sorry. Do you all have yours in front of you? Because the motion's huge. I'm going to just say I would entertain a motion to approve warrant Article 10, and then whoever does it could read the rest of that. Dr. Quick?
I motion to approve warrant Article 10 to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from any available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute a sum of money to be expended for the following purpose after the town establishes the school building committee, which is to be established in order to generally monitor the application process and to advise the town manager during any construction consistent with 963 CMR 2.103A and with the requirements of the town charter, Acts of 1950, is that chapter? Chapter 592, Sections 1, to conduct a feasibility study for the Wilmington High School.
Okay, do we have a second? Second, Mr. Higgins. All right, does anyone have any comments or questions about this? Mr. Marchese?
In terms of the people who can appoint the members to the building committee, is that the town manager, or would that be the chair? Who would be that appointing authority?
What I believe we will be doing is using the present permanent building committee, members from the present permanent building committee, and adding school personnel to the committee.
Adding personnel specifically for the new building, so they would be on that committee just for the new high school?
Yes.
Again, who would be the appointing authority? Would that be in the town manager's purview, or would that be in the chair of the school committee?
I believe it's
Both. Isn't it both of us?
It's both.
Yeah.
I think
They can make a recommendation
Yeah.
of a member.
All right, but the ultimate question is, who makes the ultimate decision? Is it board of selectmen? Is it
I
town
believe it's
manager?
the town
I think
manager.
it's the town manager.
Town
I think
manager.
it's the town manager.
Okay. Well, I
he said
openly,
that.
strongly recommend that Mr. Higgins gets on that committee, and I openly declare that today in an open meeting. that
Oh, that's-
This is the best person to put on that committee. So that's my recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Marchese, thank you.
Thanks, Mario.
That's good. Do you have any other questions?
Aren't you on that committee already?
Permanent
that
building
was-
committee, no.
He was on the master plan committee.
Oh, okay.
Unlike me, he never had to attend a meeting.
That was the best committee to be
I
on.
should have
last
stayed
year.
on it.
A year and a half in, they had one meeting, and then it got canceled 3 weeks ahead of time.
Good job.
Oh, I should have stayed. You lucky duck. Okay, so all those in favor of the motion? Unanimous, Trish. Thank you. In this, I'll just say that this is a very exciting thing to be starting this. We'll keep our fingers crossed. All right, delegations. Now we have two. Okay, thank you. Board members' questions and comments. Mrs. Duffy.
Let's see. Well, there's been a lot going on. We haven't met since February, but similar to what Kellen had said, we had a lot of students do well with their PSAT and SAT scores. That was a great accomplishment for Wilmington High School. The drama put on a couple of nice presentations and did well at competition. Our hockey and basketball teams had some very good fights in competition, and so I'm very proud of how our athletes conducted themselves. A wonderful season for everyone. A lot going on. A reminder to the parents to get to the mandatory meeting for any junior or senior that is planning on attending or may attend or may get an invitation to go to the junior or senior prom, and that a parent must attend, or they will not be allowed to attend the prom. So I think that parents need to be well aware of that, and we have the right to do that, to encourage them to get the information they need for their child to attend this event. So I think that that's very, very important. I also had an opportunity to talk to some high school students in regards to another item that Kellen had brought up, which was the genocide presentation. And it was extremely powerful, all of the students were saying, the students that had attended it, that it was very, very powerful to have those first-hand, second-hand, they had family members, extended family members who had been involved in these horrific acts. And so it just was very enlightening, is some of the words that I heard the students talking about. So it was a very impactful presentation, and I praised the teachers and the the high school for putting such a nice presentation together. And that's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Duffy. Mr. Higgins?
A couple things. I was a little late to the meeting tonight. Apologize for that. But I would like to take the opportunity to congratulate Mr. Ruggiero on a phenomenal review of finances from the Roselli Clark and Associates. One recommendation, that's to put an agreement in writing. That's extremely impressive. So congratulations. Good work. Again, it's just, excellence just seems to be the standard now, so I really appreciate that. And the second thing I wanted to mention was, with the warm weather coming and the snow banks are gone and the kids are going to get back out on their bikes, and we had a real unfortunate accident. I think it was down towards the Cape. A child on his bike had his headphones on, wasn't paying attention, shot out into the road, was hit by a car, and he was thrown into a bus. Terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. So, parents, please remind your kids, look both ways. Don't wear the headphones when you're riding your bike down the main roads, and just tell the kids, be careful, man. Just be careful. It's great. I want to be out there on my bike when it's 60 degrees out and sunny, but you got to pay attention to what's around you. So please be careful.
Thank you, Mr. Marchese.
First and foremost, I want to offer congratulations to all the sports teams, not just the hockey and basketball. All those teams did a great job this winter, so it was a great season, so I'm looking forward to the spring. There's an event coming up this Friday. It's a chorale a cappella event here at the high school, and I encourage everybody to attend. A cappella is absolutely a phenomenal event, and the reason why I'm going to say this, I'm going to endorse this group because the star group at the end of the night is called Paul in the House, and my brother-in-law is actually a founding member of that group, and they're absolutely phenomenal. You'll listen to this group, you listen to one of their CDs, it sounds like there's instruments in the background, but it's not. It's total vocals, 5 men, it's all vocals. It's absolutely incredible, so if you get the chance to get out Friday night, it's going to be worth the $5 admission fee. Also, another thing, to the seniors out there fighting hard against the faculty in the basketball, I hope you're winning, because the reason why I say that is we just approved graduation date to June 6th, so that means you have 3 months to go, and that's it. So enjoy the rest of 2010. I wish you, class of 2010, the best of luck, and again, it's 3 months to graduation, and to everybody out there, again, as I always say, please stay healthy. Flu season has passed us, but allergy season's coming up, and who knows what's going to happen. So, again, please wash your hands and stay healthy. So, that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Marchese. We're so calm.
This is the best seat to be in because there is nothing to say. I appreciate the opportunity to comment, but I would just be reiterating almost all the points that have already been said. So, thank you.
Dr. Quick.
The only thing I really want to drive home is what Mrs. Benton was talking about before. I know we were talking about this the other day in our at our WEF meeting. Please, parents, students, attend that. When is it next?
Tuesday, March 23rd.
Tuesday, March 23rd. With social media the way it is.
Oh, I'm sorry, March 18th.
March
Thursday,
18th.
I'm sorry.
Thursday, March 18th.
They're two different, yeah.
I cannot stress how important it is. Teachers are not supposed to be referees. They're there to teach and do their job and do it very well. Parents and students need to be responsible. I can't stress enough how important this type of meeting is to go to for the parents and students. And obviously, we want, a lot of times it tends to be the parents who are already cognizant of what's going on or the parents who are going to attend. So if you don't know much about Facebook, if you are somebody who doesn't know much about what social media is, it's out there, whether you know it or not. And so please, please, please attend this meeting, learn all that you can. And that's it.
Thank you. We all ditto that. I would just like to say thank you to the teachers in Wilmington, because I stand at a bus stop every morning with 7 little children. They are from age 1st grade through 4th grade, and they are, every one of them, bar none, are excited and happy to be getting on that bus and going to school. And I think to have that cross-section of kids, where it's saying that not one group is doing their job, everyone's doing their job and making it exciting for the students, and they are so happy, and I can't thank you enough for my little daily thrill. But today they did have a little setback because they got off the bus singing, half day, half day. But they were still laughing and singing, so thank you to the teachers for all the hard work that they do. I appreciate it. And I was going to offer this up for the joint meeting of Divisions 1, 2, and 9 at the Andrews Middle School. However, it is on March 18th, and I really think if we have the time to go to this, we need to be at our own meeting on March 18th. And also, I think you may have gotten this already for Day on the Hill. I don't know if you get these as well as I do at home. Okay, so, yeah. I'll pass it over could we get that tomorrow? If you want, if you're able to go to Day on the Hill for school committees, it's important. But you know what, we can't all get to everything, so we just put it out there if you can. Great. Other reports, we don't have. Correspondence? Nothing tonight. And future meeting dates and agenda items will be March 24th, superintendent's evaluation, and we'll keep it light. And I think that's all. Anything else?
Yes.
Oh, thank you, Joan. Please don't forget this weekend on Sunday. We'll be looking forward to seeing all of you, hopefully, at the NEASC, 12:30. There'll be a panel discussion. Those are usually really fun because they show you Wilmington. We'll see the high school's view of Wilmington. And then there'll be a luncheon at 1:30, and then at 2:30 here, we'll be meeting as a school committee with half of the team. So that will be here at 2:30 till 3:30. So that'll be good to see you all. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Higgins.
Motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second? Mr. Marchese. All those in favor? Okay, thank you.